But let's talk about spreads for a minute. Some people, I know if you're that person who's still orbiting around a debit spread or a credit spread, you're not. Let me back up and remind you of something you've already known. If you buy a call, that's a debit option position, isn't it? And if you sell a call or sell a put, either one, what kind of an option position is that, debit or credit? Whenever you sell, it's a credit. Thank you, Zach. You already knew that. So you can back up and think of it that way. When you buy a call, that's a debit call position. So you're applying that same thing to a spread, which is simply two contracts. One of them is more valuable, the other one is cheaper. So it just depends on if you have a net outflow or a net inflow. Just like with a single contract, if you have an inflow, that's a credit. If you have an outflow, that's a debit. And remember, you never buy an option hoping it expires, do you? You never buy a grapefruit hoping it melts in your refrigerator. You never buy a car hoping it gets stolen. So you never go long an option hoping that it expires. No, you buy an option expecting to exercise, or in the case of spreads, the difference in premiums to widen. And I got a memory trick for you all. When you get too wide, you got to exercise. Remember that. So debit, and this is a good word cluster time. It's a good time to keep, word clusters of words that go together. Debit, widen, exercise. And another thing, somebody said this yesterday in class. I forget who it was, Victor, Zach, maybe. Somebody came up with this. There are 5 letters in debit. There are 5 letters in widen. Debit, widen, exercise. And it gets better. If you get too narrow, and if you stop eating, you'll get narrower and narrower. And at some point, if you don't eat, you'll expire, right? So credit, narrow, expire. How many letters are in the word credit? 6. How many letters are in the word narrow? Are you liking that memory trick? Is that cool? So debit, widen, exercise, credit. Now the thing about, let's go back to picking the dominant position without premiums present. Yes, we are going to do that. Now you all tell me, are you looking at my word that says welcome here? Okay, cool. Let's get rid of that. If I just showed you 2 option positions, oh crud, I had this cleaned off earlier, sorry about that. Where's my pencil? There it is. There is an option with a strike price of 25, and here's an option with a strike price of 35. Which one is more valuable? Yeah, Zach, you're right. That was a trick question. Yeah, I didn't tell you if they were puts or calls, so you won't know, will you? You have to know if it's a put or a call. Now, so let's do that. Let's say these are puts. Which one is always more valuable? The put with the higher strike price. So, Carly, think about it. If you are going to put it to somebody else, if you're going to put it to them, force them to buy it from you, in other words, you are going to sell. Would you rather, if you want to sell, what kind of price do you want? Higher or lower? Obviously, you'd rather somebody pay you 35 than 25. And that's why, all of the things being equal, if you look at 2 puts, the put with the higher strike price is always more valuable. So back to the question, how do I determine dominance? It's the more valuable contract. That's the one that's dominant. Did you buy the more valuable contract, or did you sell the more valuable contract? Now, I'm not even talking about puts and calls right now. I'm just talking about contracts in general. If you bought the more valuable contract, is that a debit or a credit? In other words, is that net money in or net money out? Yeah, it's a debit if you bought the more valuable contract, not even knowing if it's a put or a call spread. On the other hand, if you sold the more valuable contract, what kind of a spread is that? It's a net credit spread, right? And then apply the memory word clusters. Debit widen exercise, credit narrow expire. So yeah, with puts, the one with the higher strike price is always more valuable. And yes, several of you jumped forward, and you're absolutely right. It's the opposite with calls. Remember, to call means to buy. So if you're looking at two option contracts, we always want to buy at the best possible price. And the best possible price is the lowest price. So if you're looking at two calls and one's a 10 and the other one is a 15, which one is more valuable? We just said it. It's always the one with the lower strike price. So it's the same concept in reverse. The call with the lower strike price, always more valuable. Then ask yourself, did you buy or did you sell the market? And that tells you if you're a net debit or a net credit. So for a spread, here's another thing, heads up. People are, I get this constantly. Why would somebody do this? FINRA will set up a spread and you look at that and you go, this is crazy. It's got almost no upside and a lot of risk on the downside. Why would somebody do this? Sometimes you just got to go with the investor's an idiot. Don't fight it. You know, the spread may not make sense. Just answer the theory question and get on to the next question. So sometimes they aren't terribly cost benefit conscious, okay? And where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so why does somebody do a spread? This is somebody who's not super bullish. They're only moderately bullish. If, you know, or they're not super bearish, they're only moderately bearish. If somebody who's not super, they're only moderate. You know, if somebody's super bull, they'll just buy a call. But they're not a super bull, they're a moderate bull. So they buy that call and then they sell a call, which is bearish, right? So they're predominantly bullish with the long call. It's more valuable, but they are, you know, a little bit bearish with the other one. This is the guy who can lose an argument with himself all day. He's moderate. Well, I think it's going up, but it might go down. So they do a spread. They get an option in either direction. Now, what's the consequence of that? You create a little window, and all profit and loss is found within that window. That you've limited your upside and your downside. So you guys tell me, what's the size of the window? How do you find the size of the window for a spread where all profit and loss is found? It's the difference in strike prices. Thank you, David. And Sarah, you're absolutely right. It's the difference in strike prices. So if you're looking at my two spreads up here, the top spread has a window of 10, right? What's the spread, the difference on the bottom spread? What's the window? It's 5. Now, all profit and loss is found within that window. So if I put premiums on this, if we said this was a premium of 3, and that's a, well, no, that this one has a premium of 3, and this one has a premium of 1. Tell me what the net premium is. Is it a net debit or a net credit? And what's the number? It's a net debit of 2. Exactly. It's a net debit of 2. You paid out a net $2. You paid out 3 and you got. So all profit and loss is within that 10-point range. And it's a net debit. So that net $2, do we stand to gain that or lose that? When it's a net debit, you know you stand, that's your maximum loss, right? Again, let's go back to the grapefruit and the pickup truck parked out front. When you buy something, your maximum loss is your whole investment, right? Same thing with a spread. Your maximum loss is your entire net investment on a long spread like this. This investor is net long $2, so their maximum loss is 2. Now look at this. The size of the window is only 10, and we just devoted 2 points to loss. So how many points are left over for gain? 10 minus 2 is 8, Carly. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. Let's do one more just for reinforcement. Look at the bottom. What if this had a premium of 1, and this had a premium of 50 cents? These numbers are kind of kooky. So that is a net 50 cent. I didn't say if we were long or short, did I? Let's say we are long the bottom one and we are short the top one. So yeah, that again, that's a net. Now let's reverse this one. Let's reverse this one because we haven't done one of these. Let's say this is a net credit. So we are short the lower contract and we are long the upper contract. So that's a 50 cent credit. All right. Whenever you receive a credit from selling an option, what's the best thing that can happen to you? When you're short an option, what's the best thing that can happen to you? Yeah, Zach and Isha and Victoria. Yeah, it expires and you need to get to keep that, right? Same thing here, but it's 2 contracts instead of 1. The best thing that can happen if you have a net credit is you get to keep that whole net credit. So the spread here, the window is 10 points, and we just gave up a half a point for gain. So the maximum potential loss is, Sunita, you're absolutely right. 5 minus 0.5, it's 4.5. Look here, the size of the spread is only 5 points. The size of the, yeah, very good. Nice recovery. Nice job. Yeah, okay, that's it for spreads. Now you may have, 2, 3 of those or whatever. Again, this is one of those times when you definitely want to go for the low-hanging fruit. Go for the low-hanging fruit, Options is an opportunity to minimize your damage. You're going to go in there and how does the OCC assign a contract, an exercise contract to a broker-dealer that's short? And they do it what? Ding, 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 randomly. Boom. That's a flashcard answer that anybody can memorize. That's not rocket surgery, right? So you're going to get the low-hanging fruit option questions and give yourself permission to leave one of the spreads on the table. One of the spreads might be an easy one, like identify it. What is it? It's a spread. It's a debit call spread. Is it bullish or bearish? You probably can do that. If the math is not your thing, focus on getting the other ones. Let the math ones go. You'll shine somewhere else on the test. Hey, Cass, who uses FIFO? You all tell me. We know the OCC assigns to a broker-dealer randomly. Now, once that broker-dealer receives that exercise from the OCC, then they get it from the OCC. They have to turn around and assign it to one of their customers who short that contract. And how does the broker-dealer do it? Do they always use random? Do they have other choices? They could use FIFO, or they could use random, yeah, or some other fair method. Another fair method. That could be a third alternative, and that works. Yeah. OCC, always random, broker-dealer, maybe FIFO, maybe random, maybe some other fair method. Now, back to this thing before we leave this slide here. When you do an option question, diagram it like this. Stack the contracts, put the one with the higher strike price on top so that you think of that as market movement and the price of the stock going higher. Now, if the test question, if you needed to know the market price of the stock, also, if they gave you that and it was something that was relevant to the question, write that down and write it down in relation to the 2 strike prices. So let's say we're working this one on the bottom. This is a test question. You've diagrammed it out like this. You know which one the investor is long and which one the investor is short, because I put a little L and a little S for long and short. I like to put a little box around each contract. Then it looks like a little piece of paper that's an option contract, a hard copy certificate. And then I don't get it mixed up with the premium. And I write the premium 50 cents there. Now, once you have it diagrammed like this, it's so much easier to work with. And then if you needed to know the market value, let's say it was 17, current market value, CMV, current market value. Write it down in relation to the 2 strike prices. 17 is above 15, which is above 10. So once you get everything, the spatial relationships correct, it's easier for you to, for example, is this in the money? Boom, the picture tells you it's in the money. Call up in the money. You see the strike prices and you see the market value up above it. So diagram your option questions like this. Take a deep breath. Start practicing with this tonight. Diagram them. See if that doesn't help you conceptualize better. It takes a little practice. You may not think it's valuable in the first couple. Stick with it for an evening and see if diagramming this way doesn't make it better.